Graham is a degree in chemical engineering and has spent 30 years with BG. And he left there about 3 years ago to join Thames Enterprise Park. And he's head of business development, and he's assisted by Phil Kennedy here, who is the PR man. So please welcome Graham and Phil.
Thank you for inviting us to talk to you today with us and for having lunch. It was very, very pleasant and we've enjoyed the company. I'll ask Phil to add in some comments as we go along, but I will lead you through this. This is an aerial photograph taken quite recently of the site. Essentially, most of the land into the peninsula you can see here is the former Croton oil refinery complex. Just down at the bottom here, this is London Gateway. This is the new superport being developed by Dubai Ports. There's 8 cranes here at the moment. There will be 24 when this is completed. It's a container port. And it is also built on a former refinery. This is the Shellhaven refinery site. So there are these two refineries next to each other in this corner of Essex. And in the background, beyond the creek there, that's Canvey Island. Some of you met it just to locate this area of Eastern Thurrock. So this is the site that was occupied by the refinery. In the middle here, the taller structures, these are the refinery process units. This is where the crude oil was cracked and turned into various components which formed gasoline, diesel and other hydrocarbon fuel products. Here, these big white tanks there, they were the crude oil tanks. This is where oil was stored. Crude oil was brought in onto the jetties you can see at the bottom. Crude oil was brought in onto these jetties and pumped into those crude tanks. From the crude tanks, it was piped up to the refinery process units, turned into fuel products, and then the rest of the tanks, the smaller tanks you can see on the side there, that's where the fuel products were stored and blended before being distributed out to the market, primarily by road tanker. There were 600 road tanker movements a day here when this refinery was operating. It was producing 9% of the UK's road fuel needs. There are also pipeline connections, so there were some fuel products were exported by pipeline, including to Heathrow. Kerosene, jet fuel was also distributed to Heathrow from this site. And finally, there's some went out by train. There's some rail sidings here. You can't really see them very easily, but there's rail sidings here which run round the back into the refinery complex. And fuel products were distributed by rail up to 2006. When BP sold this refinery complex to Petroplus. Petroplus chose not to use the rail part of the infrastructure. Some fuel products were also re-exported back out by sea, so we could pump product back out from the tanks, back onto boats, and then distribute them back into the European market or other parts of the UK market around the coast. Sorry. So this refinery complex, so was owned by Petroplus. Petroplus went into administration in January 2012. A combination of events around market changes in the UK, changing economics of refinery production, but essentially the company was not in a good place. It was too heavily dependent on debt. It was a heavily geared company, and as a consequence went into administration in January 2012. PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, were appointed as administrators. They tried to sell the refinery as a going concern. By May 2012, they had concluded that that was too difficult a challenge, given the risks and the issues around the refinery. Primarily because this is an early 1980s refinery. It was at an age in its life when it needed a lot of new investment to take it into the next stage. And so the economics of refining in the UK are not that attractive at the moment, and no one was willing to invest to the level needed. Something like around £250 million of new investment was required. So PwC, as a result of that, they then decided just to sell the assets of the business rather than the company as a going concern. And in the event, there were two bidders in June 2012, two bidders for the assets of Corriton, one being Thames actually a company called Morsing Limited, which is a joint venture company, three shareholders, three equal shareholders, Shell, who most of you will know of, Vopak, who you're probably not aware of, but they are the largest independent oil tank farm operator in the world. They're Dutch, based in Rotterdam. They also operate the terminal in West Thurrock next to the Queen Elizabeth Bridge. Featured in the background of Four Weddings and the Funeral, if any of you know that film. In the funeral scene. And the third shareholder is Greenergy, who probably most of you haven't heard of. Albeit Greenergy is actually the largest supplier of road fuels in the country now, has 35% of the market. They supply all the supermarkets with diesel and gasoline and petrol. They're probably the biggest company you've ever heard of. Because most of their road tankers are not branded as Greenergy. Every time you see a Sainsbury's road tanker, that's actually a Greenergy road tanker. It's just branded as Sainsbury's. It's a Greenergy driver, it's a Greenergy tanker, and Greenergy fuel on board. So those three companies came together to acquire the assets of the former Corriton refinery, and obviously were successful. And they took over, just coming sit off the edge of it. It's September 2012. We took over the site 28th of September 2012 from PwC as the administrators. And as part of that acquisition, we took over 580 acres, a little bit more, of land of the overall refining complex. The intention of the shareholders was to create a fuel import terminal called Thames Oil Port, and that is still the intention today. That fuel import terminal will reuse the jetties, some of the tanks, some of the pipes, and some of the distribution facilities. But rather than refining crude oil on site, import by boat, still by ship, refined products, diesel and the components of gasoline, which are mainly distillate and naphtha and gas oil. And bring those in, import those in onto the jetties, and store and blend on site, and then distribute gasoline, petrol, as I said, petrol and diesel to retail stations, just as previously. The only difference being there was no refining any longer on site. So the refinery itself, the actual refinery process units were redundant. Even though we're now almost 3 years on from that acquisition date, the shareholders are still trying to finalise the design and scope of that for a number of mainly technical reasons. Once they acquired the site, they have discovered that the infrastructure on the site, but particularly some of the tanks, was in a much worse state than expected. And that's caused them to pause because the level of investment to bring the oil port forward has been significantly greater. So there's still a clear intention to develop that, it's just not happening quite as quickly as originally intended. That, and then in January, as I said, in January this year, we also acquired a further 60 acres just to the north of the site. This was formerly part of the refinery land as well. It was designated as expansion land for the refinery. It was safeguarded for refinery development. It was never used. And initially PwC held back these areas of land, but we finally bought another 60 acres or so in January. The oil port only requires about a third or less, between a quarter and a third of the overall complex site. The majority of the site is not required for the oil port in the future. The footprint that it requires is much smaller than a refinery needs. Hence we had about 400 acres of surplus land to the requirements of the oil port. And we branded this, we renamed this part of the site Thames Enterprise Park, with the intention of it being redeveloped for new uses, primarily industrial or similar activities, not residential or commercial, being new industrial, largely industrial activities. And I'll come onto that in more detail shortly. So it's 403 acres in total. Initially, Morsing, the joint venture company, decided it was of the opinion that it would be the owner developer of that land. But after around summer last year, we concluded that this really wasn't our business. The three shareholders are energy companies, they're not property developers. They don't have the capability and resources to take this Thames Enterprise Park forward in a way which is required. It's a huge site, it requires a lot of investment, a lot of resource and experience to take this forward successfully. So in June this year, we finally announced that we were going to sell Thames Enterprise Park as a separate entity to a new buyer. And we engaged CBRE as our property agents to lead on that process. That's been ongoing through the summer. And this evening, we should be receiving the first stage bids for Thames Enterprise Park. They're due in at 5 o'clock tonight. So it's very tight there today. We expect probably around 8 serious bids to be received. There are a mixture of property developers, funding institutions, people who have developed large-scale industrial sites previously and have the experience and the funds to do this. Okay. So this is a map which shows the split, how the land is split. So I won't go into details between the yellow and the pink. That's two companies, but they're essentially the same thing as the joint venture. What you can see, the area highlighted in green border, that is the area of Thames Enterprise Park. That's the 403 acres. That's the land which is going to be sold. The land outside, which is essentially this area in the eastern toe, and the land to the north, that is the land which will be retained by Thames Oil Ports for future development. Facilities like the jetties and the rail infrastructure, which say runs around these sidings up here, runs around the back here, and into these sidings and out, and the pipeline connections here. They will all be shared facilities for both the Oil Port and the Enterprise Park. And at the very top, so we're selling 403 acres, but just to put some context on that, essentially you won't be able to develop all of that. Some of that includes things like there's a creek runs around here, which for ecological reasons we won't be able to develop, or the new owner will not be able to develop. And there's also a C-note system which runs around the outside of the site, collects rainwater, groundwater, runs off through drainage channels into the node, and then is discharged back into the Thames once it's been appropriately cleaned up. So these areas are clearly you can't develop. Similarly, you need new road systems around the site. So we have a situation where we'll only be developing around 355 acres in total, or the new owner will be.
Can I ask a question?
Of course, Ken.
The refinery part, is that already demolished, or will the new owners have to demolish it?
We're going to go back. Okay. Right, we have in August last year we let a contract with Brown and Mason, who are a Kent-based, Dartford-based demolition contractor. They're one of the UK's largest demolition contractors. To demolish the actual refinery process units, so the core process units in the centre, in this area here, and the boiler house, which is here, and then there's this yellow area here. There's the spherical tanks which used to store LPGs, butane and propane. They are in the process of demolishing all of that. That's about 70 acres of land in total. This is the most intensive part of the refinery itself in terms of density of structures. There's about 60,000 tonnes of metal in those units and tanks. And they are demolishing them and scrapping the metal and recycling the metal. It's being shipped out through Tilbury to Turkey, where it's being smelted down and reused to make white goods, washing machines, fridges, freezers. Within the 60,000 tonnes, there's about 10,000 tonnes of esoteric metals, specialist metals, coppers, titanium, things like that. More valuable metals. So that's already underway. That's a 2-year program. So that will be they will complete that work around towards the end of next year. In terms of the rest of the site, This area here is covered with 240 kilometres of redundant pipe trap and 190 redundant tanks. That is, we went out to tender about 2 weeks ago. Sorry, we received our tender bids 2 weeks ago. We went out to tender earlier in the year, and I got tender bids back 2 weeks ago for the demolition and clearance of those tanks and pipe trap. We have to clean those first, because there's still got residue of hydrocarbons in the pipes and the tanks. The Environment Agency requires that we clean them first, or the contractor cleans them rather, before they can be demolished and cleared. We also, as part of that contract, having to remediate some of the land, the areas where there's the highest levels of contamination in the land. Again, in agreement with the Environment Agency. Well, that's all one package contract, and we're hoping to let that contract before the year end. That programme will take about another 30 months to complete, so 2.5 years. So, well, 26. So by around the middle of 2018, the whole site should be clear, apart from the things we want to retain for the airport. Everything that's redundant to the joint venture's own future use, we will clear, and we will. The deal with the in terms of the sale process, we're selling Thames Enterprise Park to a new owner. Part of that deal is we will continue to complete the cleaning, demolition, and clearance of all and land remediation, as I've just described. So they will get cleared land over time for their redevelopment. This area down here, in the southwest of the site, it's called the west side, is already clear. It used to be part of Shellhaven, but BP bought this land from Shell in the 1990s, so just over 100 acres of land, and Shell demolished and cleared most of the structures. There's one structure left, which we just started demolishing last week, which is this bitumen rack here. But essentially that land is, by the time we have a sale agreed, this will be land ready to go, so redevelopment can start on that land next year. So a new owner will come in, and this 100 acres will give them plenty to get out and work at next year and into 2017 and 2018. It takes time this sort of scale of land for redevelopment takes time. But that's where they will start, down on this 100 acres on the west side. So by the time they've finished developing this part of the site, this will be clear, and we'll be working our way through all of this. So we will release the land back to them, even though they bought it. We will sort of take it back under an arrangement with them to allow us to complete the works we need to do, and we will release it back to them over time on a rolling basis as they need it. So yes, we have started demolition, and I'd say about 40% of the refinery is now gone. Okay. When we first took over the site, of course, we had this huge amount of land, 400 acres, and we had some ideas about what we wanted to do with it. And we spent a lot of time talking to the Thurrock Council, their planning team, their redevelopment team, about future use of the site, because they're obviously, we see them as a very strong partner in this process. We want to work with them, they want to work with us, because they want to see this site redeveloped. 1,300 jobs disappeared on this site in June 2012. Thurrock Council, of course, want to see those jobs replaced with new jobs as soon as possible. And of course, they understand that's not going to happen overnight, but over time. But they wanted to work with us very closely how this site is redeveloped. So we started developing a new master plan for this site around May 2013. Working very closely with them on the various options for how we did this. And in the end, we decided that what we would do is develop a master plan, which is not a statutory planning document, but the council's bought into it, it supports it, its cabinet has endorsed it, and it's now been approved by their Planning, Transport and Regeneration Overview and Scrutiny Committee, actually just recently in July this year. This is, as I say, it's not a statutory document. Next door, Dubai Ports London Gateway, they went for an LDO, a local development order, which is a statutory planning process, and it sets out, it provides planning consent for their overall plans for the redevelopment of their site. We didn't feel we could go to an LDO stage because we wanted to have more optionality about how this site was redeveloped. We didn't have the same clarity and vision of having a port with a logistics park supporting it that they had next door. Nor did we want to replicate that. We just ended up with competition with each other. We wanted to see a different use for this site, reflecting the benefits of the site, the history of the site, the infrastructure the site possesses, and that very much takes you to the view that this site is very well suited to new industrial development and new energy development. And in terms of energy, both conventional activities like power generation, normal power generation, gas-fired power generation, but also fuel processing and storage, but also non-conventional. So we're also been looking at the redevelopment of the site with renewable activities, including waste to energy from municipal waste, converting into biogas and bioliquids. Also solar. We're in advanced negotiations with a company doing a solar farm. Actually, do you want to go back on the slide? This is the 60 acres. This red boundary on the white, that's the extra 60 acres. We're looking to put a solar farm on that part of the land. And that should start construction early next year. Okay. So we very much saw that the redevelopment of Thames Enterprise Park centering around a mixture of industrial, which include warehousing, logistics and distribution as well, with energy and environmental technologies, renewable energy. What the master plan does, even though it's not a statutory document, it provides confidence to both our shareholders, the new owners of Thames Enterprise Park, and potential occupiers of the site, that if you come forward with a proposal which is consistent with the master plan, that you know that the council is probably almost certainly going to support that and be proactive in helping that get over the line, and therefore planning consent should be easier. It also draws on synergies with both the Old Port and next door's London Gateway. We don't want to be in competition with London Gateway, to the Dubai Portland Logistics Park, but we see complementary activities where, particularly that open storage of aggregates and freight, containers and vehicles in support of their activities. But equally, there will be energy links with the Old Port, taking advantage of the fact that there will be liquid fuel storage on site, and an export of energy, liquid energy products. And there was a 40-60 split there. That's basically, in terms of producing the master plan, we made a 40-60 assumption, just as an indicative assumption, in terms of informing things like the transport plan. This master plan is supported by numerous technical studies, such as environment, ecology, archaeology, landscaping, flood risk, and specifically transport. And the transport obviously needs to be driven off some working assumptions. Okay, so this is a more detailed list of the appropriate uses which are set out in the master plan. I mentioned some of them already. Environmental technologies, including energy from waste, but also producing feedstock for waste to energy plants. You don't put some waste to energy facilities use raw waste, like food, but a lot of them need processed waste. So they're taking municipal waste that's already it's been processed once, removing the renewables are taken out, and it's batched up, baled up as what's called RDF, which is refuse-derived fuel, which is a mixture of basically anything else you can't. It's what's left out from largely industrial waste. Once you've taken the renewable elements, the plastics and paper out. Power generation generally, particularly combined heat and power. A lot of these units will feed off each other, so the ability to produce heat on site can be used by other process plants as a supply input. Fuel storage and processing, energy R&D. We already have one tenant on site called Fluid Oil. They have their own bespoke technology, which is a new technology about processing heavy tar sands and heavy oils, and improving the quality of those oils, thereby adding value to them. And they're a startup company. They're occupying one of our buildings now. They have partner and developing their pilot units, which will then be grown into full-scale commercial units, which will be deployed into the field, because these actually will work on the top of by the wellheads. And as I mentioned, industrial and logistics and distribution. Well, by the way, that picture is a barge coming down the Thames. It's barging RDF down the Thames, which is going to Tilbury for export, where it's currently incinerated in Holland. So we very much see that we would take advantage of that existing operation and divert those barges into our facility, onto our own jetties, bringing a waste feedstock into the site, but bringing it in by barge rather than having to truck it down the road along the A13. Okay. Of course, the council, one of the council's key objectives is new employment and training provision associated with the redevelopment of the site. Obviously, the ultimate number of new jobs will depend on the final mix. How many big plants, small plants, the nature of the plants that come on, businesses that come on. But indicatively, we think that 2,000 is a reasonable target, which is actually exceeding the former employment levels of the refinery. Council particularly recognise, though, that local people don't necessarily have the skills in the numbers that may be needed. So a programme of education, training, and upskilling of local people will be developed in parallel with the redevelopment of the site. In particular, one particular example in July last year, maybe Phil, you back, because you were quite central to this, maybe you will explain the link with South Essex College.
Yes, I mean, there were a couple of objectives. Obviously, the council was keen that if there are going to be 2,000 jobs down there, that they go to local people. But also, we want to ensure that when potential employers start looking at the site, start looking at basing their operations there, that they can see a skills pool locally that they can draw from for employment. And So we went halves with with Thurrock Council on a workforce planning study, just to see what skills there were in the area, what training there was in the area, and what skills employers were likely to need. And that identified very little provision in the area, largely as a result of very little demand. And so there's going to be needed a twin job of both stimulating demand from the youngsters to want to do the engineering courses and the chemical engineering courses that are needed by these sorts of facilities, and then to make sure that those courses are available. We found that the University of Northampton was probably the best respected university in the country for precisely those areas, for reusing waste, getting energy from it, getting fuel and gas, all that sort of thing from it. So we've arranged a partnership between South Essex College and University of Northampton, and the college will teach some of the courses of the University of Northampton, which has some distance learning experience. That was supposed to start in September, but I gather they had zero demand in September, so there's still a big job to be done in encouraging school-age students to start taking an interest in these careers. And we met the head teachers of Thurrock schools in March to talk to them about how we might work with them in future. So there's a twin track approach going on there about getting more knowledge about what's going to be on the site, and also making sure the courses are in place. Thanks.
You can't really expect people to train for jobs that aren't there, can you?
No, that's part of the difficulty. But these, obviously, a chemical engineering course is going to take 2 or 3 years for them to work through.
I mean, there's no guarantee of any jobs. It's all very
No,
fluid.
it is circular, you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
but in fact there's big demand for chemical engineering nationally and internationally. The question is just, you know, whether people want to stay in the local area and have jobs locally, and you're absolutely right. It would be a huge gamble for someone to train up for something wanting to stay locally when there was nothing yet coming out of the ground. I mean, this is effectively what I was just saying. So this is what the workforce planning study found was a number of local employers already, not just future employers, but existing employers are finding it difficult to recruit areas in those 5 workers there, you know, engineers, technical workers, project managers, but there are also national skills shortages of mechanical engineers and electrical engineers, for example, which also affect the site. So, you know, it's not just a matter of...
It's not just a local issue.
No.
It's a national issue.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I mentioned already, demolition started in November 2014. I think we've covered quite a lot of this. All the works, there's one point, the buildings, there's quite a lot of buildings scattered across the site. Most of those we will demolish and clear unless the new owner wants us to leave them and they want to take them over. So it's an option for them once we start finalising a sale. I think I've already talked about all of this. Okay. So the marketing process has already started. The master plan was approved in July. We hope to get the bids tonight. Then there'll be a process of about 3 to 4 weeks where we evaluate the bids and make a selection to shortlist into a second stage. That second stage will involve detailed due diligence by the potential bidders. The intention of them making final binding bids before Christmas, and then probably the sale completing in February, March next year. Okay. Any questions?
Did you come across any chemical, what do you call it?
Pollution. Contamination?
Pollution, yes.
Yeah, there is some. I mean, you would expect that to be the case. It's been this site has been used in the oil industry, particularly, since the Second World War. Initially, just for storing oil in tanks, but with refining activity started in the mid to late 1950s by what is now called Mobil. It was called the Vacuum Oil Company at the time. So, you know, we have a site which has got 60, 70 years of operational activities involving hydrocarbons. Not surprisingly, there have been spillages over that period of time, and there are some areas of contamination. In general, it's not about, in terms of, relatively speaking, for the sort of site it is and its former uses, it's not heavily contaminated. Only, there's a few hotspots around scattered around the site, and those areas, those hotspots, and if I remember right, it was 14 of them. And the Environment Agency requires us to clean up those 14 hotspots. The rest of the site, the level of contamination is so low that it's not designated as contaminated land. But where it's at a higher level, then we have to clean it up first before it can be sold. Or it'll be a condition of the sale, because we will actually do it. The clean-up will take place in 2016, 2017.
Can I ask a sort of tangential question? There's something you alluded to right towards the beginning. If we go to Sainsbury's or some other wholesaler, is the petrol we buy the same as is delivered to Shell and BP and all the others?
Essentially, yes. I mean, Greengy are they're sort of middle players in the market. They don't produce oil. They're not oil producers like Shell is, so they're not integrated. What Greengy do is they buy processed fuels on a wholesale basis, usually off the Rotterdam market, because Rotterdam is the main market for oil products in Europe. So it'll get shipped into. I mean, this is what they do in West, because Greengy actually uses Propax tanks in West Thurrock at the moment. So what they do is they buy shipments of various fuel products, whether it's diesel or naphtha or distillate, as I mentioned. Green Energy will then, actually what they do is they produce their own biodiesel on the Humber. They've got process plants on the Humber where they produce biodiesel. They blend biodiesel into fossil diesel. So if you go to Sainsbury's and fill up with diesel, that is 7% biodiesel. So already it's blended in. You won't necessarily get that with Shell. So it's Green Energy has the highest level of biodiesel in their diesel. In terms of gasoline, gasoline is a manufactured product. Gasoline is not a single component. It's actually made up of various other hydrocarbon streams, and you can make it slightly different ways, depending on the calorific value of the various components. You have to end up with broadly the same mix in terms of energy content, but you can make it in slightly different ways. So the answer to your question is not necessarily quite the same, but very similar.
Are there any other questions? No.
Has there been any talk of a nuclear power station on the site?
No, nothing serious. No.
The Chinese quite keen.
No, I think the likelihood of a nuclear power station being built here is less than 1%.
That's good. I live in the area.
I cannot conceive of anyone wanting to build a nuclear power station on a site which is not already at a nuclear site. They're going to go to Bradwell or Sizewell. They're not going to come here.
You've mentioned a number of is there anything in relation to public amenities? Nothing's been mentioned.
No, that's a good point.
Repeat the question. Sorry.
The question is about public amenities in the area, and that is part of the problem. This is a positive side of the site. The site is quite isolated. It's 3 miles to the nearest residential housing, so it's which is a good thing, but it also means there are no public amenities. So the master plan does actually set out provision for creation and establishment of some limited public amenities on the site for the benefit of the site occupiers. So some small shops, cafes, that sort of thing.
Because it's a vast area.
It is a vast area, yes.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to draw the meeting to a close. There's some work to do.
Brian would have done.
Do apologise for that. Nutel, would you like to?
Right. I've been designated to offer our Rotarian thanks. Our speaker offered insight into the workings of the refinery industry and the pending outcome of the sale of the park. No more bids, please. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for real warm Rotarian thanks.